How US dollar became so powerful. USD is one of the world's strongest currencies. It is the official currency of the United States, as well as several other countries. The dollar's value comes from the US position as a critical global economic power and the country's political and economic stability, while it may hold less value than such currencies as the Swiss franc or the British pound. The dollar's global use makes it a more commercially viable currency. The United States dollar was established as the world's foremost reserve currency by the Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944. It claimed this status from sterling after the devastation of 2 world wars and the massive spending of the United Kingdom's gold reserves. Despite all links to gold being severed in 1971, the dollar continues to be the world's foremost reserve currency. Furthermore, the Bretton Woods Agreement also set up the global post-war monetary system by setting up rules, institutions, and procedures for conducting international trade and accessing the global capital markets using the US dollar. The US dollar is widely held by central banks, foreign companies, and private individuals worldwide in the form of Eurodollar foreign deposit accounts, not to be confused with the euro, as well as in the form of $100 notes, an estimated 75% of which are held overseas. The US dollar is predominantly the standard currency unit in which goods are quoted and traded, and with which payments are settled in the global commodity markets. The gold standard. The Federal Reserve Act of 1913 created the Federal Reserve Bank to respond to the unreliability and instability of a currency system that was previously based on banknotes issued by individual banks. This was the same time that the US economy became the world's largest, surpassing that of the United Kingdom. World commerce still centered around the UK, though, as the majority of transactions took place in British pounds. The majority of developed countries pegged their currencies to gold as a way to stabilize currency exchanges. But when World War I broke out in 1914, many countries suspended their use of the gold standard to pay their military expenses with paper money, which devalued their currencies. Britain, though, held to the gold standard to maintain its position as the world's leading currency and found itself borrowing money for the first time during the 3rd year of the war. The United States became the lender of choice for many countries that wanted to buy dollar-denominated US bonds. Britain finally abandoned the gold standard in 1931, which decimated the bank accounts of international merchants who traded in pounds. By then, the dollar replaced the pound as the leading international reserve currency. The Bretton Woods Agreement. As it did in World War I, the US entered World War II well after combat began. Before it entered the war, the United States served as the Allies' main supplier of weapons and other goods. Most countries paid in gold, making the US the owner of the majority of the world's gold by the end of the war. This made a return to the gold standard impossible by the countries that depleted their reserves. Delegates from 44 Allied countries met in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire in 1944 to come up with a system to manage foreign exchange that would not disadvantage any country. The delegation decided that the world's currencies would no longer be linked to gold, but could be pegged to the US. That's because the greenback was, itself, linked to gold. The arrangement came to be known as the Bretton Woods Agreement. It established the authority of central banks, which would maintain fixed exchange rates between their currencies and the dollar. In turn, the United States would redeem US dollars for gold on demand. Countries had some degree of control over currencies in situations wherein the values of their own currencies became too weak or too strong relative to the dollar. They could buy or sell their currency to regulate the money supply. The US dollar becomes the world's reserve currency. The US dollar was officially crowned the world's reserve currency and was backed by the world's largest gold reserves thanks to the Bretton Woods Agreement. Instead of gold reserves, other countries accumulated reserves of US dollars. Needing a place to store their dollars, countries began buying US Treasury securities, which they considered to be a safe store of money. The demand for Treasury securities, coupled with the deficit spending needed to finance the Vietnam War and the Great Society domestic programs, caused the United States to flood the market with paper money. With growing concerns over the stability of the dollar, the countries began to convert dollar reserves into gold. The demand for gold was such that President Richard Nixon was forced to intervene and delink the dollar from gold. which led to the floating exchange rates that exist today. Although there have been periods of stagflation, which is defined as high inflation and high unemployment, the dollar remains the world's reserve currency today. Central banks hold around 59% of their reserves in US dollars, according to the International Monetary Fund. Many of the reserves are in cash or US bonds, such as US Treasuries. Dollar-denominated debt outside the US continues to rise, with levels reaching $13.4 trillion as of mid-2022. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one.